Hey guys, how you doing? Welcome to Ottoman's Life. My name is Ali. Thanks so much for watching. I hope you're keeping well. So the steampunk genre, it seems to be getting a bit more traction lately. I thought it peaked around the mid-2000s, but it does appear it's getting a little bit more popular. And if you're not familiar with what steampunk is, it is a subgenre of the sci-fi genre. And think about retro futuristic technology mixed in with Victorian type aesthetics. That's basically what steampunk is. I think probably the most easy example is, and arguably the guy who probably kicked this whole thing off, was the famous author Jules Verne. So like 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, around the world in 80 days. That kind of vibe is basically what the steampunk genre is. I love it. It's one of my favorite genres, especially I come from the time of anime and manga and video games when they got inspired by that genre. So that's why I adore that genre. But it also appears that Fantasy and Lumibricks love that genre too. So it may be getting some traction over in the Asian market. And I know that because I bought Lumibricks' latest set, the Steampunk Watchtower, Sentinel Watchtower set. So, does that set ooze the steampunk vibe? How does it fit into a Lego city? How does it compare to other modulars? Let's find out. So when I completed this set, I sat back and I looked at it, and the immediate thought was, hey, this is quite tall. And I immediately glanced over to my Lego city and started to think about, what about the other tall buildings I've got? Let's compare it. So we're definitely going to be doing a comparison against those tall buildings and other modular buildings. If you want to see that and you're impatient, I have time-stamped it, so please feel free to jump ahead and ignore this part of the video. But nonetheless, the design of this set, in my eyes, is really nice. It's really beautiful. I mean, it does ooze that steampunkiness vibe, with gears, its pipes, the colors, especially the metallic gold and this metallic green that's on the roof. That was really nice to see. I haven't seen that much. It does appear also to have some kind of religious overtones with its stained glass windows and minarets, but I couldn't find any of that in the storytelling and the lore that Lumibricks are trying to present here. But I'm really liking how Lumibricks is really leaning into this world building that I think they're really trying to build up with this steampunk theme they have. This set is meant to be the watchtower, the sentinel that looks over and guardians the city itself, which is a pretty interesting concept. The modularity comes into 3 sections with this set, and the ground floor houses the core, the reactor, the apparatus, and what appears to be some of the early inventions of this watchtower's founder. And that founder is actually the minifigure that you see proudly erected on the front of the set. So they seem to be really leaning into this story building technique, and I wish they would allow us to build into this story technique by putting some jumper plates on the ground floor or around the set to be able to place minifigures and really add to the story. It's not that difficult, guys. Please just put some plates with studs on there all over the place so we can start putting in some minifigures and creating the story in the world that you are creating. In true Lumibricks fashion, there is accessibility through 2 swinging doors, which is really nice, and I'm so glad they continue to do this. It really adds to the accessibility, and you need it to be able to see all those wonderfully, again, printed pieces and bricks and tiles that's housed within this ground floor. It's still amazing to me how much they do print. The lighting on the ground floor is really nice. It does illuminate this floor really, really well. I think my favorite is the reactor with its subtle red lighting around the place. I really like that. And then you can see a little bit of a hint of the first stained glass built window on the ground floor. When that light is shone through, it does look nice. So although there are no windows around this set, that's why the lighting is really necessary. On the ground floor also is probably the first of the functionality that you're building, is this very simple yet elegant technique of a lift to take someone from the ground floor up to the next section. That was really nice little build to do, and I wasted far too much time going back and forth on that lift. That was really fun. So the second section is the largest and is the main tower of the build, and I think the first thing you're going to notice is the continuation of the brick-built stained glass window. It looks really nice. It was a really nice build to put together when you're building it on its side, and having that light come through is really, really nice. I mean, they could have cheaped out and put in a printed glass panel in there, but it was nice to utilize the parts and do some building and to see that effect really come through. I really appreciated that. The gold grill pieces that you see going down, up and down the building, I think really adds to the aesthetic of elongating the tower to make it taller than it is. It's really nice. The steampunkiness still continues. There's a lot more pipes, more gears, and the gold decor all over the place. The platform to the side does remind me of the Avengers Towers set. It's bigger than I thought it would be, to be fair, but it will never be big enough to be able to place a minifigure scale ship on there. But they do give a little side build of this very ingenious and perfectly what I have in mind of a retro-futuristic little copter that you can see flying around and landing here. That was really nice. It's quite stable, very stable, that platform. So it's really nice to have that stability there, and it won't fall apart when you look at it. To get access to that platform from a minifigure's perspective, there's this really nice chain elevator that will take you up there, and that build does remind me of the build in the Haunted House, if you remember, of the Lego Haunted House set. And he has a similar kind of technique to wind it up and to elevate the platform up, and it does go at a really nice pace. It's not slow like Ninjago City Gardens, if you know that set, and that gondola. You're falling asleep when you've only moved like a centimeter. Accessibility inside of here is nice. You got some throwaway panels that you can take off, and so if anything does get caught in the elevator chains, you got some access in there to mess around with. Again, no real windows. It's all brick built in there, so the only visibility you see is when you actually physically take the panels off. Now, on the top of this section is the famous, I suppose, Sentinel Astronomy Tower, where all the watching really happens. And that is connected then to the final section, which is just the roof that connects on top of here. Now, this section, I have to admit, was probably my least favorite of this entire build, which is quite unfortunate because I believe this was the main core of the set's namesake, the Watchtower. I think my problem with this section is I'm not sure what they were trying to achieve here, and I think they had some questionable design choices. The telescope in question, you can move it back and forth, you can angle it up and down, but it's quite limited in its movements, and you've got some technique there to do it, although you can do it with your hand. I would have thought it would have been nice to have it fully retracted in there, so it's a lot more cleaner than having this big bulky telescope in its place. The lighting also of the telescope I thought would be far more prominent. It isn't. There's just a little ring in there, and it's just not as, bright as I thought it would be, considering it is a Lumibricks set and lighting is a big feature for them. maybe I was hyping myself up a little bit too much for there. But on the subject of lighting, I think the other key thing that I thought was a bit questionable was the source of power for the light. There is no connection to the ground floor where the main source of power comes from for the light, either through a battery pack or through a USB power hub. So what you're left with is one of those flat battery packs that you need to have regardless attached to the roof. And that provides a lighting for this section of the astronomy tower and a bit on the roof as well. And okay, it's not a big deal, but I found that a little bit odd, maybe a little bit inconvenience for some builders that just want to have one source and not to worry about these flat batteries packs as well. And I think with that trade-off, you don't have any minifigure accessibility to actually get up there in the astronomy watchtower. So Lumibricks seem to me good. Most often than not, tend to go for realism, especially with the lights and the limited play features, and it is a set for adults, and we do look for realism in these sets. So when you don't have that realism of, well, how does a person go into the astronomy tower and use the telescope, you feel like they missed a beat here, and especially with the lighting choices. I get it, you had to make a design choice whether you go for one way or the other. Perfectly understand. In my view, I think the open concept would have been better, to have accessibility in there to continue the same power line coming through. But that's my subjective view. Your mileage may vary quite a bit. Another thing I do want to call out, and it may not be a big deal to a lot of people, but for me, again, the lighting is part of Lumibricks' main product feature, and there were quite a few instances in this set when I was building it, and considering it was a recent set, there were some pinching of the wires, and they didn't seem to use the specialized bricks that they had to look after the wires, especially when it comes to tiles and some of the fence pieces. I just thought, okay, maybe one, but it was quite consistent all the way through. So that was a little bit puzzling to me, because usually they're quite good at not having that kind of pinching. I don't think it's going to impact or affect the lighting. It was just a little bit inconsistent to what I'm used to with Lumibricks. So I just do wish they do drive some consistency with their lighting and their parts they utilize to facilitate the lighting in there. Again, it's not a massive thing. It's not a deal breaker, but I do feel it does need to be called out to them. At the end of the day, it's a big part of their product offering, the lighting. Overall, on its own, it does give the steampunk vibe. But as I said before, if they really want us to invest in this storyline, they really got to give us the ability to invest in it with them as well. And that means having some places for minifigures to create the stories that they want us to create. But I'm really happy they're building a world in this genre. I noticed on their Red Note page, they are creating some kind of all these warring factions, etc. Especially on Reddit as well, I saw that come up. So I'm really looking forward to the other sets they're going to have in this theme and the story they're trying to create in there. I for sure am invested. Overall, from a value perspective, all those little quibbles that I mentioned, the design choices were probably not something that I would agree with, but from a value perspective, the retail set price in the UK is £134. I got it for about 25% off that price. I mean, the value is insane here for over 2,700 pieces, lighting kit, printed parts, very impressive tool set. I'm so happy Lumibricks understand the concept of value, and I really hope it continues. Also, for the sake of my wallet, I hope it continues. And they really are knocking things out of the park with every set. No set will be perfect, but they really are doing some really nice themes. The only other company that is doing some steampunk thing is Fantasy. You can't get anything from Lego with steampunk. It's probably not that big a market or theme for them. So for all the steampunk nerds that really like this subgenre, especially if you're a kind of anime, manga, video game fan, I think we're going to be very spoiled in the coming years, I believe. I think it's getting trendier. I think the genre is definitely getting a bit more trendier. Anyway, now, but how does it fit in the Lego City? And let's do the fun thing of comparing it with some other buildings. I think the first comparison has to be the fantasy steampunk offering, which is the Big Ben inspired steampunk clock tower. And you know what? It's giving it a good run for its money. It almost is the same height. And I think the only difference really is on the top of the dome part. Not much in it. Obviously it's a little bit thinner, the fantasy set is, and it's not modular in the strictest of senses, but it does look pretty nice together. It's interesting how much gold is in the steampunk theme, huh? I mean, I have to say, when I think of fantasy versus Lumibrick, even though the Lumibrick set did have quite a bit of Technic functionality in there, with the elevator and this platform, I've got to say, the Technic build in the fantasy set inside of here, I have to admit, is probably very intense and complicated. For what we actually needed to do with the clock tower set was just to move this pendulum around and all these gears. But it was, I think that's what the steampunk was, these moving gears, and that's what I always think about of steampunk, is the constant moving of the gears in building structures. But what do you think? Which one is the better of the two? I don't think I've got a favorite, to be fair. They're both trying to do different things, but from a height-wise, they very much do match up. Now, from a Lego City perspective, I mean, I believe the fantasy set does probably easily fit in to a standard Lego City, more so than probably the steampunk set, but that does depend on how your city is designed. Now, sticking with fantasy, I thought it'd be fun just to see what the opera set looks like next to it, because the opera set was kind of very Gaudi-esque. It did have some gears, a lot of gold decors, so it's got a very similar aesthetic, so I thought that might quite go well. And I tried now putting it onto the other side. Now, you can probably see one problem immediately. With this platform, it does overhang over the 32 by 32 base plate that this set is actually built upon. So, if you have a building that is the same height or taller than this platform, and that building utilizes the full width of the base plate. I mean, this one even doesn't. I mean, you still got two studs here, so you can see how much it is overhang. So probably 4 studs by the looks of it. Now that does add some challenges of placing this set, the steampunk set, into the Lego City. You either need to get a building that is not as tall or has a bit of a gap, or you extend the base plate of the steampunk set. There's various other options, but I think that's worth definitely pointing out. But let's put it onto the other side and just to see how it does look when it is connected properly. Now, arguably, it probably does look much better anyway on this side, purely because of just that platform. But you know something, it doesn't look too out of place. There's not much of a mismatch between the two. The aesthetics aren't too bad. Yeah, I like that. I think that just goes to show that it isn't as out there in a normal Lego city, but the fantasy building is extremely beautiful, very opulent design. Let me know if you want me to do an in-depth review of the fantasy sets. I haven't done one yet, but I'm more than happy to. Right, so I think this is the tallest building that I have in my Lego City, the Daily Bugle set. And sorry about the glare of the light, but yes, obviously it's a bit shorter. But you know what? I was planning to have this next to each other in my city because I thought it would be a nice skyscraper kind of look to it. But they really don't go together whatsoever in terms of themes or anything. So that's gonna kind of knock my plan out of place. So, but it's a nice little comparison to see the two buildings together. Let's just have a quick look on the other side. I'm really interested to see how it looks like on the other side. Now, at least with this building with the Daily Bugle, because it is kind of doesn't utilize the full width of the base plate, you can connect the two base plates together. Obviously, it doesn't make sense having that platform right next to a building like that. And yeah, it doesn't look that nice, to be fair. I mean, it's a total different color scheme and theme and everything that you never kind of see this in real life. But it's interesting to see it from a height comparison if I'm just trying to get as level as possible so you can see the difference. So I thought this would be a fun little comparison. This is a mock of a cathedral based on some Harry Potter sets. And I did mention in the review of the steampunk, there seem to be some religious overtones with the gold and the domes and the minarets. So I thought, hey, why not just put the cathedral next to it? And you know something, it doesn't look half too bad. The aesthetics are a little bit similar, minus the gold and gears. But that doesn't look far too silly or out of place, especially when you look at it from this angle. It's quite good. It's difficult to get the whole height of the set in, but that's quite cool to see. There's no point putting it onto the other side because that platform for sure will block it and get in the way. So sticking with another mock that I've got in the city, I decided to have a look and put this luxury spa set that I've put together based on Disney's Raya's Palace. And mostly because of the gold aesthetics that we have in this set, I wanted to see if it matched quite well. And I do like the combination of the two together. And I think, you know, if you have something on this side with a kind of similar gold overtones, that actually might look pretty cool, having the tower sandwiched in between. Basically, you guys are just watching live my thought process of how I can place this into the city. Thanks for being here. So I think, as you can see from that exercise, it can fit into a Lego city quite well. You just have to bear in mind of the platform onto the side. It doesn't look as bad compared to some of the aesthetics of the Lego modular buildings, especially with the fantasy buildings as well. So I think there's a lot of challenge, but also fun to try and integrate this into your Lego city. And I think with Lumibricks' owned steampunk theme slowly evolving, you're going to see more sets that will probably fit in really well. I do have the Flying Dutchman corner building set as well, so that'll be really interesting to build and see how that looks against there. I'll definitely do a video on that when it's all done and dusted. But I really hope you enjoyed that. I'll see you in the next one. Peace and love.